Welcome to Community Church Unitarian Universalist. I'm your worship associate, Jim O'Neill, and it's a joy to be with you today. For those new to our community, let me introduce us. We are a progressive, open-minded, and inclusive religious community. We welcome all who want to search for truth and meaning. Ours is a faith in action as we do the work of justice and elevate compassion in our quest to live ethically, recognizing the inherent worth of every human being and every being. Please look to your weekly email for announcements. We also have an announcement from Sean Law.
Hi everybody. Two things real quick. We were scheduled to have a postcard writing event after worship today, and due to a logistical problem, I think we have to postpone it until later. So that won't be happening after worship, but good news is there is a fancy lunch that everybody is welcome to enjoy that will be in the kitchen along with the usual coffee. Second thing, I'll start real quick. It's getting to be to the time of year when the church's bookkeeping arm sends out a reminder to everybody to give them a mid-year update on the payment of their pledge. So if you made a pledge for 2024, you'll be getting an update on where you are in terms of fulfilling your pledge for the year. So that just means, if your pledge was $1,000 and you've been paying $100 every month, then the update will tell you, you've paid $600 today. So that'll be coming to you by email if you want to watch out for that in the next couple of weeks. Thanks.
Thank you, Sean. We are delighted to welcome back to our pulpit Emma Caverly. She's been a member of Community Church Unitarian Universalist since 2022, and she serves on the Worship Committee, the Social Justice Committee, and she sings in the choir. A native New Orleanian, Emma holds a bachelor's degree in geology, speaks French, and tries to approach the world with a curious mind. She works as a pastry assistant in a local restaurant. Emma is committed to voting in every election. Please join me now in our land acknowledgement, found on the back of your order of service. We acknowledge and pay tribute to the original inhabitants of this land. The city of New Orleans is a continuation of an indigenous trade along the Mississippi River, known for thousands of years as the Watch. Tribes that have lived on this land include the Cattle, the Natchez, the Choctaw, Chirimaca, Moa, Tunica, Biloxi, Papaisha, among others. We recognize that as a result of broken treaties and involuntary removal, Native Americans were often forced from their lands. We remember and pay respect to the communities impacted by these actions. Native peoples have lived on this land since time immemorial, and the resilient voices of Native Americans remain an inseparable part of our local culture. With gratitude and honor, we acknowledge indigenous nations that have lived and continue to thrive here. And now I'll open the words.
Our opening words come from Lifting Our Voices. It's number 145, and these words are from Mahatma Gandhi. A principle is a principle, and in no case can it be watered down because of our incapacity to live it in practice. We have to strive to achieve it and the striving should be conscious, deliberate, and hard.
It is our custom to light a chalice invoking hope and eternal truth to our worship. Please join us in singing the words of chalice lighting. We light this flame to put it into our service.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. I don't know about you, but it's been a trying week. Been depressed and all that stuff. And then I thought about those wonderful words from the great philosopher, Bob Marley. And so I rise up this morning, smile with the rising sun. 3 little birds pitched on my doorstep, singing sweet songs, a melody pure and true, singing, this is my message to CCUU. Baby, don't worry about a thing. Every little thing is gonna be alright. Baby, don't worry about a thing. Every little thing is gonna be alright. I rise up this morning, smile with the rising sun. 3 little birds pitched on my doorstep, singing sweet songs, of melodies pure and true. This is my message to CCUU. Baby, don't worry about a thing. Every little thing is gonna be alright. Baby, don't worry about a thing. Every little thing is gonna be alright. Rise up this morning, smile with the rising sun. 3 little birds pitched on my doorstep, singing sweet songs, a melody pure and true, singing, this is my message to CCUU. Advocate and please vote. Thank you all so much.
Let us join in singing out our children wherever they are. Now is our sacred time of joys and sorrows. If you're online, you may write them, your comments to be read aloud in the chat. In person, you may put them on one of the cards being passed out by our greeters. Please remain seated as we sing our hymn, number 323. Break not the circle, number 323. From Claire, my godmother continues to suffer from her stroke. We hold her. From Claire, my godmother continues to suffer from her stroke. We'll hold her in our hearts. From Alicia, joy for productive meeting last week in the Avis Sanctuary, and for the big step taken forward by CCUU to pursue a minister. Grateful for Avis's gift to help make it happen. The sorrow that our democracy is so threatened in these days. We now light 2 more candles. One for the joy still bubbling up, too new to share, and one for the sorrow that we cannot yet find words for. Know that we hold you in our hearts.
Good morning. Our first reading comes from Peggy Clark. It's entitled Equality in a Sea of Inequality. When this country was founded, the aspiration was high. The men who imagined it dreamed big, casting a vision of a world where all men were created equal, where rights were endowed by our Creator, transcending culture and the expectations of the day, where life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness would be allowed and enjoyed without infringement. It was a radical and new vision, born from Enlightenment optimism, inspired by scientific discovery. It was an intoxicating vision, as bold as the Protestant Reformation that swept all of Europe. And they had the hubris to believe they could make it happen. They staked their claim in the Declaration of Independence and institutionalized it in the Constitution. They elected their first president, and when he stepped down, relinquishing power to return to the role of a citizen, those founders believed they lived to see their vision realized. A new president ran for office, and the republic was up and running. It was done. A new world order. Those men weren't distracted by the genocide they inspired, or the enslavement of other people they required for this nation to be born. They declared equality while swimming in the sea of inequality. When they declared all men are created equal, they meant white Protestant men. They didn't mean women. They weren't including black people who'd been enslaved, or those who were free. They didn't include Catholics, Jews, or people who didn't own land. They were so proud of their inclusivity, so inspired by their own cutting-edge philosophy, that they had no idea how narrow it was, how constrictive, how small a vision. The men who wrote these words were calling into being a more perfect union. They were establishing justice, ensuring domestic tranquility, securing the blessings of liberty. They believed that they, and the men of their generation, would will this new nation into being. They would establish the structures required for such a grand vision, they would test it, and then it would be done. They didn't realize it would require many more people, many different voices. They didn't know how many generations would have to be part of the creation of that dream, how long it would take before the nation they imagined would be manifest. The soul of America has yet to be born. rise as you are willing and able and join in singing hymn number 85, Although This Life is But a Wraith. Hymn 85. Able to enjoy the holiday this week. A few years back, I happened to be in Boston for the 4th of July. They really go all out for Independence Day in Boston. There are events all week long. There are huge firework displays, concerts, parades. People fill the streets all day. Independence Day festivities in Boston begin in the morning with a parade from City Hall Plaza to the Old State House, where the captain commanding of the Ancient and Honorable Artillery Company of Massachusetts steps onto the balcony and reads the Declaration of Independence to the crowd gathered below. This tradition dates back to July 18, 1776, when a member of that same artillery company first read the Declaration of Independence to the people of Boston. As much as I enjoy fireworks and cookouts, that Independence Day in Boston felt weightier, more significant to me, because the document that started it all took center stage. I have always thought that it is special that we mark our nation's independence on July 4th. We don't mark our independence on April 19th, the anniversary of the battles of Lexington and Concord that started the American Revolutionary War in 1775, nor is it October 19th, when British General Cornwallis surrendered at Yorktown in 1781. It's not the signing of the Treaty of Paris on September 3rd, 1883, that officially ended the war. We mark our Independence Day on July 4th, the day on which, in 1776, 15 delegates from 13 states voted in the Second Continental Congress to adopt a document asserting their right to independence from Britain, then boldly signed it. We say that we are free, not because of a battle, or because our independence was acknowledged by other nations, but because our elected leaders claimed our right to liberty with a vote and immortalized that claim with their signatures. From the vantage point of today, we might say, rightly, that their understanding of freedom that they claimed was too limited. That even as they claimed freedom for themselves, white, landowning Protestant men, they failed to fully recognize that women, poor and enslaved people, and people of color had just as much right to self-determination as they did. But even if they did not live up to their own ideals, I think we must acknowledge that it was their vision that put us on a path to building a nation where all people have the right to self-determination, liberty, justice, and the pursuit of happiness. That path has been long and full of trials and obstacles. For nearly 250 years, we the people have struggled to build a more perfect union. Our commitment to the ideal of liberty has been tested time and again. It took 89 years and a civil war to end the practice of slavery, and longer still to secure voting rights for all Americans, regardless of race or sex. And while we are much closer to that goal of universal equality, we have still not fully realized the dream. But we are still here. And as long as we are here, we can continue to work toward a brighter future together. Our democracy is far from perfect. Proportional representation has become disproportional. The largest congressional district has nearly double the population of the smallest. The design of the Electoral College is such that the votes cast in some states are more powerful than votes cast in others. Gerrymandering makes it so that our elected representatives often choose their voters rather than voters choosing their representatives. It's no wonder that many eligible voters have given up entirely, feeling that their voices simply don't count. Today, political divisions are deep and often bitter. In the halls of Congress, compromise has become a dirty word, and party loyalty seems to outweigh loyalty to the nation. The threat of political violence looms, especially after January 6, 2021, when an angry mob attempted to subvert the results of the 2020 presidential election with violence. To mark Independence Day this year, the Washington Post published an editorial entitled, "Americans Can Fix Their Fraying Society." The editorial board of the Post argues that our partisan divisions are rooted in cultural shifts that extend well beyond politics. They state, "Cultural shifts among Americans threaten to make the country more divided and weaker. This long Independence Day weekend is time to recognize the danger of Americans growing independence from one another." Independence from one another. As evidence, they point to a significant decrease over the last 30 years in the percentage of Americans who volunteer or make charitable donations, and a broader disengagement from institutions, whether they be government, religious, or civic. This shift means that Americans are less likely to engage meaningfully with people of different socioeconomic, cultural, or religious backgrounds. The less we engage with people who see the world differently than we do, the more we will struggle to identify our shared values. How did we get here? Choices. What we choose to say, what we choose not to say, how we choose to say it. When we choose to listen or choose to tune out. Small choices, big choices. They all have consequences. Using violent or inflammatory language to express our distaste for our political rivals brings us closer to political violence. These changes are as much, and perhaps more, about what we choose not to do as what we choose to do. If we do not take the time to listen to the people with whom we disagree, we will not be able to understand how their values shape their opinions. It's easy to point a finger at the other side and blame them for not listening to us. Sometimes it can be difficult to figure out how to go about engaging in meaningful dialogue. Conventional wisdom tells us to avoid talking about politics and religion in mixed company. We learn to avoid any potential social tension by sticking to neutral topics, whether the saints. And we save our politics and religion for times and places where we know we will find like-minded individuals. I consider myself at a slight advantage, just a slight one, when it comes to practicing respectful dialogue with the other side. I have a large extended family. I have 21 aunts and uncles and many, many cousins. I was raised to prioritize my relationships with them, and we value our time together. Most importantly, we love each other. I know that if I'm having a difficult time, all I have to do is ask, and they will be there to support me. Not everyone is so lucky. We are also a house divided, so to speak. It's close to 50-50 between politically left and right-leaning folks. We disagree, often strongly, about what the best path forward is for our nation, who the best leaders are. But I know them, and I know their intentions. Even when they are wrong, in my opinion, I know that they want the country to be a good place for everyone. There are so many reasons that I am grateful for my family. In our current political environment, I am particularly grateful that they have taught me how to disagree with someone while still respecting them. I won't pretend that there aren't bad actors with bad intentions. There are certainly those in this country who are motivated by greed and hatred. Some of them are in public office. Some of them encourage political violence because they think it is their path to power. Our task is to build bridges with those who do not seek violence, even if we disagree with them on other things. We must build mutual understanding with those who disagree with us. We must unite in defense of civil discourse and democracy. Democracy takes work. A well-functioning democracy doesn't just happen because the founders designed one in the Constitution. It takes time and effort to educate ourselves on the issues, get to the polls, reach out to our elected representatives. And it takes time and effort on the part of our elected leaders to listen to us. Last year, we had what I believe was the most disappointing election I've ever seen in my life. We chose the governor of our state in an election with historically low voter turnout. Only 36% of registered voters cast a ballot in that election. During that election, it felt like people were resigned to the outcome before a single ballot had been passed. Voting is not just our right. It is our responsibility. This year, we will once again return to the polls, this time to choose the president of our country for the next 4 years. I feel and see some of the same attitudes that we saw last year in the governor's election. And I'm concerned that people will stay home. It is essential that we take our right to vote, our responsibility to vote, seriously. Sometimes we don't like our options. Sometimes all of the candidates are disappointing in one way or another. You have a duty to vote anyway. Did you know? You don't actually have to like someone to vote for them. There's always a least bad option. Sometimes I vote mostly for the right to complain about our elected officials. But it's important to remember that when you vote, it isn't just the candidates for public office, or the constitutional amendments, or the millages, or the charter amendments that are on the ballot. Democracy is on the ballot. Last fall, I don't think democracy won. Democracy only garnered 36% of the vote. That's not enough. So what can we do? What can you do? Democracy is one of the core principles of our Unitarian Universalist faith. What are we as UUs going to do to make a change? You can start close to home. Ask your friends, family, colleagues if they are registered to vote. Ask them if they know about the next election and what's on the ballot. Try to start those conversations in a nonpartisan way. If they ask about who the candidates are, you can tell them what you think, certainly, but also share how you make your decisions. Personally, I find it really helpful to hear why someone comes to a conclusion. Even if we don't agree, I can learn something from that. I want to live in a state. I want to live in a country where all voters participate and make informed decisions based on their values, even the voters who I disagree with, because that is what a functioning democracy looks like. I would feel so much better about not liking who wins the election if we had 85%, 90% turnout. When was the last time you heard of anything close to that in any American election? But we can do more. We can be more organized about the way that we work for turnout. So we were going to do a postcard party this Sunday. No. But on the first Sunday of the month, we have been doing postcard parties, and we will reschedule this one. And we're writing postcard parties. We're writing postcards to potential voters to encourage them to turn out and vote in elections. And we can do still more. Together Louisiana, a coalition of churches and community organizations to which CCUU belongs, is building a nonpartisan Pledge to Vote campaign with the goal of increasing voter turnout in every corner of the state. CCUU will be participating. Come September, we will start asking you to take the Pledge to Vote. And we'll also invite you to volunteer to help others turn out. A pledge to vote campaign can work if it's done correctly. Last year, Together Louisiana worked on getting out the vote in Caddo Parish. You may remember the sheriff's race was decided by one vote. And then what happened was that election was thrown out by a judge because there was more than one vote that was potentially illegal. And so they reheld the election in March when we had the presidential party primaries. What they learned from that race was that, first of all, there was a lot of energy that went into it, and turnout increased by I think, close to 10% from fall to the March election. And in an election where 42% overall turnout, the way that people were reached made a difference. They sent text messages. 37% of people who received a text message voted. So maybe no contact at all would have been better than sending a text. People who received a phone call from a human turned out at about a rate of 64%. People who made a pledge to vote in their community organization or church voted at a rate of 88%. And people who had a conversation in person with a canvasser voted at a rate of 91%. It's hard to imagine a world where we could have 88%, 91% voter turnout. But we could. We can. And we don't have to do this alone. Currently, Together Louisiana is recruiting religious, civic, and social organizations to participate in the campaign. Certainly, they'll be starting with member organizations, but organizations don't have to belong to Together Louisiana to participate in the campaign. So, for those of you who maybe are involved with an organization that might want to join, come talk to me afterwards. I can give you more information. This could be an advocacy group, a fraternity or sorority, or even a Mardi Gras group. All that matters is that you're an organization that cares about the state and about this country. I love that our country is a democracy. Even when I'm frustrated, which is often, with how things are going, I love that I have a voice. I have the right, and my voice matters, my vote matters, your voice matters. I think that many people in this country have been failed by the civic education that they have received, or the civic education that they haven't received. Too many eligible voters don't know how to vote, don't know where to vote, don't know when the next election is, and this is perhaps a failing on the part of, it's easy to point the finger at the political parties or the government for not doing a better job of getting the message out. But at the end of the day, we the people are sovereign. We the people are responsible for the direction of this nation. We send those people to office, we choose them. And when we choose not to vote, we cede that right to someone else. If we don't like any of the candidates, there's somebody out there who thinks that crazy person is great and they will vote for them enthusiastically. So we have an obligation to ourselves, to each other, to every American, to do our part and keep democracy alive. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Emma, for your encouraging and challenging words. Our community church is a self-sustaining congregation. Members and friends' generosity help us do the sacred work of bringing justice, spirituality, and compassion to our community and beyond. You can give online at ccuunola.org/stewardship or by text. I think that's on the back of your order of service. Yes. And you can give in person this morning. Please join in our offertory, number 119. Once to every soul and nation, number 119.
Our benediction comes from Lucas Hergert. Democracy's benediction. We are democracy, unruly, unfinished, unrelenting people of rebellious joy, taking to the streets, underground resilience, resisting complacence, the pleasure of activism, organizing into simple hope. We are democracy, people of principles taking on principalities, witnessing the worth of those called unworthy, justice now gaining ground, integrity of interdependent existence, extending living democracy in hands, heads, hearts. We know that democracy can die, ossify, brittle byproducts of bygone idealists, plotting politicians, pirating votes, corporations cannibalizing our care for the world. It can wither, distend, come to an end. Democracy, today, we will love you alive, make you ours, make you thrive, and vote as though our hope is on the line. And a brief announcement, we do actually have all of the logistics in place for the postcard party, so please join us afterwards for the postcard party in addition to coffee and conversation.
Wonderful. Please join as we extinguish our chalice. We extinguish this chalice here that it might glow gently in our hearts. May it light your path as you leave this place. May it guide your way until we are together again. Our postlude is number 151. I wish I knew how. Number 151.